The majority of my life, I've spent trying to fit into my own shoes. I am originally from Alabama. I was raised in a fairly tumultuous home, and although my parents were loving, I would be hard-pressed to say they were ever very present. Because of this, I was a fiercely independent kid with roughly zero direction. But I was good at school. I graduated with my associate's degree in psychology a week before I graduated high school. I went on to the Savannah College of Art and Design on academic scholarship, where I graduated magna cum laude. About a week later, I moved to New York City and realized in that moment that I had zero idea what I was doing with my life. I interned at a few design houses over the course of several years. Eventually, I found one that I absolutely adored. Thankfully, they liked me too. I was lucky enough to work in production, communicating between factories in the garment district in New York. I met amazing, talented people every single day. And for some reason, I never really felt like I belonged there. So, I quit. I quit my job that I loved, that could have been my dream job. And I started waitressing again, completely lost. Eventually, I gave up on New York. I needed to find what I was missing inside of myself and what I was so scared of in my own work. And I moved to Austin. I didn't touch a sewing machine the first year I was here. And every time I looked at it, I felt the most intense guilt I couldn't possibly explain. I met a friend around the same time who was wildly successful. He worked in web something. I'm not exactly technologically savvy. To this day, I still could not explain it to you. But he asked me one day why I wasn't working on my craft anymore. And I told him I was too busy. I completely lied. And he said something to me that was so simple, yet it changed my entire life. He said, just sew. Just sew something every day. It might take you a day to finish, it might take you a week to finish, but at least you're still working towards something. And it didn't answer the question that I had for myself, although at that point I don't even really know that I knew what the question was anymore. But it did take down the initial barricade I had set up for myself. So I took his advice, and it worked. 1 piece became 4, became 10. About 6 months later, I launched my line. Around that time, I finally found my answer. And I wasn't afraid of failure. I thought that that might be what it was. I was afraid of success. I feel like success is far, far more fragile. And I always thought that the opposite of failure was success, but it's not. The opposite of success is to do nothing. And it's with this knowledge that I built a womenswear company. I've received a lot of nice press. I finally got to a point in my work, in my life, where I was proud of myself. And last March, I received a Facebook message from the casting director of Project Runway, which naturally took me aback a little. Sort of a quiet person, so my personality doesn't exactly translate on TV. But I remembered back to when I didn't try, and the guilt that I felt because of it. So I went for it. And it happened, just like that. And overall, it was an experience. It was a good experience. But I didn't go on the show to be on TV. I went on the show to push myself both creatively and mentally in a way that I knew I couldn't do on my own. On the show, I had zero time to implement any sort of design process. It takes a little bit more than you could edit into an hour to go from design to construction in an actual business. My creative process continues to develop over time. Most people, I think that the creative process begins with inspiration. For me, it doesn't. It begins with who. Who is my customer? Where am I selling this at, you know? For me, when I first began my company, my customer was me. You know, what I looked for and longed for in my closet, things that I hadn't seen before or wished that I owned. And as the seasons have gone along, I've gotten to know my customer, as well as myself, much better. The most frequent question I am asked is, how do I decide what I make? And part of it comes from this woman, this actual woman that exists now, and part of it comes from my idea of her, my muse. Where is she going? What is she doing this season? If she had to pack all of her favorite things into a suitcase, what would they be? And I build a story around her, and I let that story move and flow organically as the process goes along. Because your inspiration has to stick with you the entire time. The next thing I do is order swatches, and I order tons of them, and I lay them all out around my studio like a patchwork quilt, and I whittle them down to create color stories and texture stories, things that will just keep me inspired as this goes along. It's a long process, guys, I'm telling you. And I try to stay inspired, and not just by drawing or writing, but I go to events, I go to dinner alone, I do things that will keep my creative mind as open as it can possibly be, looking for details or small things that I can use in my own work. But the difficulty doesn't come in deciding what to make, it comes in the actual making. Garment construction is interesting, and it's tricky. It requires both a math brain and a creative brain, which really one of us tend to have one or the other. Because moving an idea from 2D to 3D, it doesn't always translate. You know, you can spend 30 hours on a project, on a piece, and at the end of the day, it looks exactly like your sketch, and your sketch looks amazing, and your outfit is terrible. And you can't be let down by it, because it's not a failure, it's just a new route not to take next time. I design and construct whatever my heart imagines, and then I let my brain edit down the details. Unfortunately, in business, you can't exactly have everything you want all the time. So I make edits, I cut looks, as heart-wrenching as it could be, because in business, I have to pull back on my emotional connection to my art. I create because I love what I do, not just to make money, because I feel like making money is a byproduct of loving what you do. And I also like to say that business is the antagonist of the creative process. But every good story has an antagonist. If you are an artist, a maker, a creator of any sort, I absolutely urge you to create every day. Do something every day. Because to be relevant, you have to be present. And you might start to notice that your work will propel you instead of you propelling it. Now, the TEDx team and I have collaborated on a show for you guys, including some of the students. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy.